Good morning, everyone. I'm Catherine Snyder, and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Boulder Valley. We are a little teaching center in Lafayette, Colorado, that teaches that each of us is a divine being, that what we think and we say matters, and you can change your life by changing those things, by changing what you think, by changing what you say. And our vision, our passion is inspiring and uplifting every one of us to transform the world. So we start each of these with a type of prayer that we call affirmative prayer. It's not about beseeching an outside God. It's about being our own manifestation and bringing forth the truth of who we are and speaking that truth into the ether, the power that surrounds us, the divinity that surrounds us, and letting it be true. And when we do, things do tend to come true. And so today, our prayer will be by, is it Debbie or Jim?
No, I'll be doing it.
All right, Jim, thank you.
Okay. I like to start my meditations off with a couple of deep breaths. So I encourage all of you to take 2 or 3 deep breaths, take them all the way in. And when you let out, don't push it, don't force it, just let it on its own. And when you're down at the lowest part of your exhale, stop a minute and feel the oneness, feel the unity, feel your connection with the spirit and with everyone. We know this is true. We know that there is one source, one ever guiding divine direction. We know this. We thank this, are so grateful for this. I am so happy to be able to connect with everyone. And we know this will be manifest as we believe, as we embrace the wonderful feeling of being in unity with all that there is. And join with me in saying, and so it is.
So it is.
So it is. Thank you very much. Our speaker today is Lori Carlson, and she has been here before, and it's been wonderful. Let me tell you again about Lori. She's a licensed practitioner with the Center for Spiritual Living in Morristown, New Jersey. And she started studying this teaching in 2016, became a licensed practitioner in 2022. After many years helping people with their physical bodies as a massage therapist, she now focuses on healing people with their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. She's a published poet and uses poetry as part of her ministry, channeling spirit in a co-creative way. She's also very active in her recovery community. With 10 years in the program, aims to combine the science of mind teachings with the recovery principles to better serve those in need of spiritual guidance and support. And she'll be talking about taboo subjects today. So Lori, go.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all. I love this community, and I am happy to be here talking about taboo topics. The topic this week from CSL, the organization was talk about. I don't want to be looking at me. Was let's talk about sex. But I thought that we would talk about sex, but we would also sort of expand it into all those things that we don't want to talk about, all those conversations that are difficult. And so that we could lean into this principle of oneness. Jim, that prayer was such a beautiful way to start, because that is what I'm going to be talking about. This field of oneness, this understanding that we are each sparks of the divine, and as such, we are all one with that power and presence, and we are all expressions of that. And that as we recognize that and know that, it is easier to lean in to the difficult conversations that are necessary for our consciousness, for our expansion, for our growth. So just in the name of total transparency, I just want to tell you that this is a work in progress for me too. I certainly do not do it perfectly. In fact, if you ask my boyfriend, he will tell you that I shy away from any conversation that involves conflict. However, I do embrace those conversations about recovery, around the principles that I have learned in this teaching, about ways to bring them out into my community, into my environment, into the world around me. But it is a process. It is progress, not perfection. So it is something I think that we are always working on, being willing to lean in to where we're uncomfortable, into those conversations that we don't want to have, by recognizing that we are all one. And so in that oneness, there is some ability to lean into those conversations. And of course, pleasure in all of its forms, in sex or in drugs or in rock and roll or in food or in whatever that, however that pleasure demonstrates or manifests for you, is one of the things that people have difficulty with, right? Because often in our early religious training, or in our family of origin, or even in society at large, we are judged and shamed, and we focus on those things that make us different rather than on that inherent oneness. I don't know if any of you have people in your worlds, in your life, that struggle with addiction, that struggle with sexuality, that struggle with how they identify and how they are treated in the world. But in my world, I have several people that are very close to me that I love very much, that very much struggle with that have struggled with their identity, with knowing who they are, and then with being able to express that and to feel accepted as that, as who they are, to know they have had a very difficult time seeing the divinity within themselves because of how they have been treated in the world and by society and by the media and by all of those conversations that tend to separate us. So part of being a spiritual community and being on a spiritual path is, how do we best show up for others as that acceptance, as that place of love that allows others to accept themselves, right? So when we come from that place of inherent oneness, we get to demonstrate that in ways big and small. And so in my particular story, I mean, I've been upfront here about my recovery and the introduction and in what I've shared here before. But so in my story, sex as a part of my 30 years in addiction was something that was something I used to survive. It was something that was marketable for me. It was something that was manipulative for me. And it was something that I made use of. And there was a lot, and not to get into details, but there was a lot of shame around that for me when I came into recovery. There's still a lot of baggage that has to do with that, right? And so the one thing that I have learned in recovery, and especially through this teaching, is that those things in me need to be healed. I need to be able to accept the things in me so that I can better show up for others. Because if I am not willing to accept those areas in myself that are wounded or damaged, or my past history, then how can I give that openness to others? How am I willing to participate in a conversation with others that allows them to truly be their authentic selves, if I'm not willing to really look at those places within myself that struggle with my own authenticity? So Ernest Holmes says in the Science of Mind magazine, through a conscious acceptance of the fullness of the presence of God, there flows in and through us a joy, a love, and a wholeness that touches every part of our being. Now, how beautiful is that, right? But the important part there is every part. There is not some parts where God is and some parts where God is not. There are not some parts of us that are spiritual and some parts of us that are not. that is what this whole concept of oneness and wholeness and this whole spiritual journey is about, right? To recognize that there is spirit in everything. And that's not always easy to do. I remember very early in my recovery, my first sponsor telling me to bring God into every aspect of my life. And so I sort of rebelliously and belligerently said, yeah, even into my nightly masturbation. And she said, yes. And I was like, Lord, I was like, how can I do that? What are you talking about? Like, the things I think about are nothing God wants to hear about, you know? And she was like, no, Lori, that's the point, that's the point. You need to be able to invite God into every aspect of your life. And let me tell you, at that point in my spiritual journey, I could not hear it. I could not believe it. I did not try it. I was like horrified by the whole idea. But now, having been on this path and in this teaching, I now see that all of life is an expression of spirit. I now see that every aspect of myself is an expression of spirit. And so there is no spot that is good. It's not like being here in spiritual community is, wow, we're all so spiritual. And then when I go off and, sorry, but masturbate or do something else, it's not spirit. That's not what we believe here, right? That's not what this teaching is about. This teaching is about that we are all divine sparks and that life is expressing through us. Spirit is expressing through us. So Ernest Holmes also says, if we enjoy life, God is that much more completely expressed. Well, what a great freedom that is. What a great blessing that is. Oh, if I can wrap my mind around the fact that by enjoying life, by embracing pleasure, by embracing my sexuality, by embracing enjoying food or whatever else it is, that I am a better expression of God or spirit or however you want to say it, because we know that we are expressions of spirit and spirit expresses through us, in us, and as us. And so, how can anything be other than that? How can anything we do not be an expression of spirit? And so, I think that it is really important to know that this is true, but it's important to do it from a place of recognizing that inner divinity, of recognizing that that spirit exists in each person and in everyone, everywhere, all the time. And that's not easy to do, right? Especially when we're, caught in feeling uncomfortable with ourselves. So one of the things that I like to do at my center, we start each celebration or service with a namaste practice, right? So namaste means the divinity within me recognizes and honors the divinity within you. And a lot of places do that like as a greeting, and a lot of times at my center we just do it as a greeting, like. But when I lead at my center, I try to do it as a spiritual practice. So what I do, how I do it, is I encourage everyone, and it's hard to do this on Zoom, or else I would have us do it. But I have everyone pair up with one other person, hopefully someone they don't know that well, and to make eye contact. And to, from that place of continuous eye contact, to look into the other person's eyes and to look past their appearance, what they're wearing, their makeup, what you know about them, and to look into that place of inner divinity, to really try to see it and to speak those words. The divinity within me recognizes and honors the divinity within you. And then take a breath, and the other, without breaking eye contact, then the second person repeats that back and you receive. So it is a give and take of recognizing that inner divinity, of recognizing that inner oneness. And this is a reciprocal energy, right? This is a place where we get to show up for others, to be seen and to see. And that is the greatest gift you can give someone, and this talk about sex, right? What do you think of when you think of intimacy? I know a lot of people think of, sexual relations, right? In a lot of books and things like that, they call it being intimate, and it just means you're having sexual relations. But intimacy is really about so much more than that. You know, I'm sure most of you have heard that into me see, right? And so when you create an environment and a space for intimacy, you are allowing someone to see you, and you are allowing someone else to be seen. And that is what true intimacy is. And that is what true vulnerability brings forth, right? When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, when you allow yourself to be seen as your authentic self, then you allow someone else the space to do that. And isn't that what we try to do on the spiritual journey? Isn't that like who we want to be in our spiritual communities and, you know, in the world at large? And by allowing other people to be their own authentic selves, we embrace that conversation. So we try to lean in to that oneness, lean in to that place where the divinity within me really sees the divinity within you. Not judging, not, you know, not from a place of, well, look, I'm dressed like this, you're dressed like that, but from a place of really seeing beyond all of that. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we get to remember that. That's what being in a spiritual community is all about. That's what this teaching is all about, right? And so when it comes to matters of sex or politics or finances or anything that wants to divide us and separate us, how can we see past that and see to that inner divinity, right? I mean, how can things like pronouns and gender and assignations in terms of parties and, you know, levels of income, and how can any of that separate us when we really truly recognize that we are each full expressions of spirit, we are each here to uplift and support each other on that way, and that we are all one. So for me, it always comes back to, no matter what I'm talking about, it always comes back to that oneness, to recognizing that divinity within each of us that unites us on a level that is beyond our understanding, that is like in the core of who and what we are. And I don't know how many of you read Signs of Mind magazine, but I'm a big fan and I read it every day. And this month's Signs of Mind magazine is really good. And the reading from a couple of days ago had a reading that speaks to this oneness that I really want to share with you. So if you want to check it out, it's from Thursday, August 15th, and it's by the Reverend Catherine Saw, and it was published first in 2016, because this month is an amalgamation of all different, it's not just one person, it's all a bunch of different people. But she quotes at the very beginning a quote by a woman named Molly Voss that says, if you place two living heart cells from different people in a petri dish, they will in time find and maintain a third in common beat. Wow. Like two hearts in a dish, two cells from hearts in a dish will automatically find that oneness. And so she goes on to say in the reading, the biological fact that our very cells recognize their inherent oneness is proof that despite any arguments or prejudices and biases that may speak to the contrary, the very nature of life is some essential joining force. That, yeah, our cells know on a cellular level that we are more alike than we are different, that we are more, that the oneness is the truth of our very being. So all of those things that we throw up to separate us, all of those things that we think make me this way and you that way, that is all superficial. That is all out here in the realm of circumstance. It is not the truth of who and what we are. And our very selves know this truth. Beautiful is that. How inspiring is that, right? I love um oh god, now I've just lost his name. The Japanese Makoto does the photographs of the water when it's preyed on and the water cells. I'm blanking on the name, but the idea that at a cellular level, the truth with the capital T, the truth of the power of prayer, the truth of our oneness, that this exists beyond just our consciousness, but is actually out there. And so from this place, of recognizing that we are all sparks of this one divine intelligence, that we are all here seeking self-expression as divinity, as aspects of the divinity. It allows for truth to manifest. It allows us a greater freedom of expression. So one of my other Ernest Holmes quotes, I have a couple of them here, is all men seek self-expression as all men seek life, because the God in us is freedom and must be expressed. I don't know. Have you ever thought of the God in you as freedom before? I know I didn't used to. I mean, it used to be God was the one imposing rules on me, right? In my old teaching, God was the opposite of freedom. And the way I was raised, God was what told you what to do and what not to do. But in this teaching, we know that our divine nature is freedom, that our knowing our oneness with the divine and our unity with God is that very thing that expresses through our life and is that very thing that evolves us, right? Ernest Holmes is always talking about how we are ever on an upward evolution. So, what is it that evolves us? It is this consciousness of freedom, the freedom to know that we have a choice, and that choice is that we can recognize our divine nature. And to me, that is just such a glorious thing. It is such a beautiful expression. And it allows me to be in a place of acceptance, to allow for all the things that I've done in my past, to be okay, to move forward, to evolve, and to accept others in their journey, on their evolution, right? Because, in recovery, there's a line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that says, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. I don't even have to look at the quote because I know it by heart. I can even tell you what page it's on. Page 417 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. But it is because it is the truth, right? Just like in this teaching, the truth that we are all sparks of the divine and we are all one is like the core basis of our teaching. So in recovery, that acceptance is the answer to all our problems. And that goes for the spiritual journey as well. Because when we can truly accept ourselves, and whatever that means, whatever way that we are expressing spirit, then we can show up and accept others. And if we can't lovingly express ourselves, if we are judging ourselves and being critical of ourselves and blaming and shaming, then how can we be that energy of acceptance and love for others? I know in this teaching, we always say it's an inside job, right? As within, what is it? So without, you guys can't answer. When you're in person, I say, let the congregation answer, because everybody knows that. That's a big part of our teaching. As within, so without. And so if you are being harsh to yourself, if you are staying in a place of shame and criticism and judgment, then that is what the energy you bring to the world. So it is the most important thing to heal yourself. It is the most important thing to bring that love and that acceptance to yourself. And it's not easy, right? I don't know how many of you have a critical voice in your head. I have that voice in my head. I'm on a spiritual journey. I'm always trying to evolve. I'm speaking here with you today, but that voice is going in my head saying, "Oh, you could have said that better, Lori. Oh, you could have, And that's why when I do this, I tune into spirit. I try to channel spirit to get rid of that ego voice, because that voice in my head is still there. After all these years in recovery, after all of my journey on the spiritual path, that voice is still there. And I think for most people, that voice is always there. So it's like, but how do you deal with it, right? Well, one of the ways I deal with mine is I named it. I named it Bertha, because Bertha, my apologies to anybody named Bertha. It's not a generation of you or anything else, but for me, that I don't like that name and that what it the image that brings up for me. So I call that voice in my head Bertha, and when it comes up, I say, "Oh, yeah, Bertha, not now." Like, yeah, okay, I'm not listening to that anymore. Like, okay, Bertha, thanks, but yeah, no, I've moved past that. I've outgrown you, Bertha. She still keeps talking. She doesn't get that I've outgrown her. She does not shut up. But by separating myself from her a little bit, by realizing that that is not the truth of me, that is just that critical voice, that is that ego voice. That is not the place where I am one with the divine. That is not the place of wholeness. That is not who I truly am. And so I can better let go of that voice when I recognize this. And in terms of our sexuality, so there's one thing I want to share with you is I used to think of myself as a hedonist, right? I, I would proudly proclaim, like, oh yeah, I'm a hedonist. I love pleasure. I still do. I mean, I still like sex. I still like food. I still like nice materials. I still like massages. I still like good things in life. But rather than thinking of them as me being bad, I used to think it was like a bad girl thing, and I wore it as a badge of honor. Like, oh, I'm a hedonist. I don't care what anybody else wants or thinks, or that's who I am. But now I have come to see that, like I said, enjoying my life, enjoying pleasure, taking the fullness of expression into every aspect of my physical being is spirit expressing. So there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing separate about that. And I read a quote that really expresses this really well. So it's by Adrienne Murray Brown, from a book called Pleasure Activism, The Politics of Feeling Good. And she says, I actually consider myself a pleasure activist and not a hedonist. And now that's how I'm defining myself. A hedonist is someone whose goal is to experience as much pleasure as possible. A pleasure activist, on the other hand, is someone whose goal is to increase the amount of pleasure in the world experience. And since I'm a person in the world, it follows that I too strive to experience pleasure. But I also try to help others experience pleasure. So that is my new stance. I am now a pleasure activist rather than a hedonist, because yes, I enjoy pleasure, but I also try to bring others into a place of enjoyment, into enjoying their own pleasure, into enjoying their own nature. And I see it now as a natural outflow of spirit. Right? If spirit wants to be fully expressed and everything is spirit, then there is no place where spirit is not. So it's my natural right. It's my divine inheritance. It is just the absolute flow of allowing spirit and not judging. And that's one of the ways that we can bring this out into the world, is to be truly comfortable with ourselves so that we can allow others to be comfortable with them, with their selves. And this is, Ernest Holmes, how many times am I going to quote Ernest Holmes? Ernest Holmes reminds us that the ultimate goal of life is complete freedom from all discord of every nature. OMG, complete discord. Freedom from complete discord. Well, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the discord within myself, like that birth of voice and that all those judgments, that's where I experience the most discord. It's not, I mean, luckily we are here in America and we are in a place where there is division and there is separation that manifests, but we're not really in war, we're not in discord. But how many of us have that war going on in our heads? How many of us, fight with ourselves and with other people in our own minds? And so if we can be gentle with ourselves and learn to let go of that birth of voice, right? And learn to embrace all aspects of ourselves, those areas of sexuality, of our relationship with food, even, like our relationship with drugs and alcohol. I mean, so not to the point of overindulgence, but to the point of recognizing that everything is spirit and that there is a balanced way to deal with all things, right? And that way basically begins with a lack of judgment, or not a lack of judgment, but with refusing to judge, not a lack of judgment. Sorry, wrong language there. So I think for me that the most important spiritual practice is to refrain from judgment, to refrain from judging others, to really let go, also non-judgment, to really let go of that thing that calls one thing good and one thing bad, one thing red and one thing blue, one thing, all of those separations, all of those judgments that we make are those things that isolate us and separate us from each other. That's not the truth. The truth is that on an inherent level, like I said, we are all connected. We are all more alike than we are different. We are all made up of the same star stuff. So we can bring our awareness to that and bring our attention back into that place, and therefore embrace all our desires and all our pleasures from a place of non-judgment, and allow others to do the same. Because one of the things in this teaching that's so important is that we allow others their own journey, right? We don't impose our judgments and our journey on anyone else. But we want to be, as a spiritual community, as people on a spiritual path, we want to be that safe space that encourages others to show up as their authentic selves. We want to be that safe space that allows others to be whoever they are, dress however they want, show up in whatever way they want to show up without feeling judged, without feeling like we are seeing anything in them other than the divinity, which we know is the truth of their being. And that is not always easy, right? It's not always easy to look beyond the appearance, to beyond those things that separate us. But that is the spiritual journey. And that is what we all want to do as people on a spiritual path. We want to be that loving, safe space so that others can show up as their authentic selves, and so they feel free to really be who they are. So one of the ways that I do this is through poetry, because poetry allows me to be vulnerable. It allows me to share my intimacy, right? You know, it allows me to really share who I am, and it makes me aware of my oneness all the time. When I am channeling spirit, when I am in prayer, when I am writing poetry, when I am speaking with you here today, I recognize that oneness because I am in that divine flow. And that is where we want to live, eat, and breathe, as they like to say. Eat, pray, love, live, eat, breathe. We want to be in that place of recognizing oneness. So I would like to share a poem with you all that I wrote. It's actually 2 years old, but it is very much in speaking with this topic because it's about allowing others, it's about how we see and allowing others to see us in a way and how we see others. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy it. It is called Sight. Hold on, let me try and find it over here. Okay, so it's called Sight. So I invite you, if you want to, just close your eyes and listen to this, or you can keep your eyes open, whatever works for you. But anyway, I hope you'll enjoy it. Sight. Can you see with your eye into the eye of another, past the cornea, iris, color, and brow? Can you look past appearances to see the light within? Can you allow the reflection of another to be all they see in your face? Can your very glance give others the chance to be their true selves, free of any trace of judgment, envy, derision, or scorn, so that all they see in your eyes is the innocent beauty with which they were born? Can you? Can I? Can I be the mirror that encourages others to see their own inner divinity? Can I be that honest, that transparent, that true? Can I keep my thoughts polished, spit shined, and in line to reflect back only the best of you? Because that's all I see with my mind's eye, a sparkling, shiny, shimmering surface that reflects and refracts the light in me until it joins and mixes with the light in you. Namaste, one and all. Can I wipe clean any sense of separation from my visage so when others look at me, it feels like they are coming home to themselves? Can I? Do I? How often and how well? Can I see past the differences into the unique beauty of each one? Can I allow others to feel just how amazing they are by the way that I see them? Can I be the one that gives recognition to the one in others, to the one in us all? Can I see and be seen as a channel of spirit? Can I maintain such a vision of us as one that it allows for no division or inequity? Can I? Do I? What more can I do to see rightly and allow others to be rightly seen? Can I use my physical form to put others at ease? Can I realign my posture, my position, my pose? Can I be mindful of every muscle twitch, every grimace or groan, every about to be roll of the eyes, and instead emanate compassion and exude acceptance to all in my every smile, however small? Can I be a warm place, a safe space, open arms of grace for everyone I meet? And if not, at least a neutral one, arousing nothing harmful, nothing negative. Can I? Can you? Can we learn to truly see the one in one another? Wow. So, are you guys willing to lean in now and have a conversation about these difficult topics, about how you try to see beyond appearance and circumstance to the truth of our divinity, to that understanding that we are always expressing our oneness? And one more quote from Ernest Holmes: God's will is always towards life and more life. We must believe that the will of God is happiness. So, how willing are you to believe that the will of God for you and for everyone is happiness, so that you can engender an atmosphere, a space that creates for others the opportunity to really connect with themselves and really foster that sense of happiness, that sense of self-expression, that sense of authenticity, no matter who they are, how they appear, how they show up as, knowing that we are all one and that the divinity within me recognizes and honors the divinity within you. And that I try to bring that out into everyone, into the world at large. And as spiritual beings having a human experience, we get to show up and do that and create that ripple effect out there in the world. So, how do we create a world that works for everyone? This is how we show up as our authentic selves. We show up as recognizing the divine in each one, and we come back again and again to acceptance, to oneness, to self love, and to extending that love out to the self in each. So, I look forward to hearing what you all have to say about it. Thank you for having me this morning.
Whew. Thank you, Lori. Warm place, safe space, arms of grace. That was wonderful. All right, guys, time for a discussion. Before I stop the recording, a quick word. Of course, that here at Centers for Spiritual Living, we do believe that one gives for and receives spiritual nourishment. If you found value in the message, if you want to contribute to our work, or feel moved to make a donation of any size, please make a love offering at cslbouldervalley.org/donate. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now and we can begin this discussion. If you're watching this recording later and want to be part of the conversation, next time, find the Zoom link on our website, cslbouldervalley.org. We meet online via Zoom the first, third, and fifth Sundays at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. All right.